everyone, it's Krysten from Mastermind Adventures, and this week's video is going to be a little bit different because I had to record it at a time that our guest was available. So, and I might be doing this a little bit more going forward based on people's schedules. Not everybody can meet at 12 o'clock on a Tuesday. So I am happy to introduce the video, the live video. Well, it will be live, but the video that I did with Evan Colbert. He's a licensed social worker, and we'll go through introductions in the video that we recorded. But this episode is so full of really great information for parents about ages and stages, and some really great practical ideas of things that you might be able to do for your kids that will help them to give you a break by finding something else to do for a little bit. So I hope you enjoy this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I will be watching comments live so that I can comment back with information. And of course, at the end, I will also probably tomorrow, the day after the video is live, I will post a blog post with all of the links and information about things that we talk about during the video. So we hope you enjoy it, and see you next week. Okay. Hey. Welcome, Let's Play group. I'm Krysten Kalina. I'm the owner of Mastermind Adventures. This is Evan Colbert. He is a licensed social worker here in Massachusetts, and as I think I talked about a little bit in one of our other videos when I was talking about having you as one of our guests, Evan has helped us develop Quest, which is our tabletop role-playing game, therapeutic tabletop role-playing game for kids who have autism spectrum disorders and other social needs, and also has been a key partner in helping us develop our therapeutic live-action role-play games. So I'm super excited to have you talk to the community. It is great. Yeah, I think it's really, I think that it's really, as we just talked offline a little bit, but I was just kind of getting Evan up to speed about what the needs of the community seem to be, the kinds of things that might be helpful to talk about. But it definitely seems like there is a unified concern, and I guess need for parents to know, what else can I do, where else can I find kids for my kids to connect with that are offline, or different activities and programs that might be useful and helpful to help it not be so frustrating for you all when your kid just wants to play Minecraft all day or Fortnite,
hours a day,
right?
Or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. For hours and hours. So, so first off, just maybe tell the group a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Okay. I am a licensed independent clinical social worker here in the state of Massachusetts, and I do both supervision of clinicians who work with children and families, and also I do therapy with children and families throughout the Bristol County area.
Bristol County.
And I have been working with kids and with families for the last 20 years.
Wow.
I officially right now have worked in my field for more than half of my life.
Isn't that a weird feeling?
I'm like, holy cow.
That's a weird feeling.
Every time I say it, it makes me feel like 1,000 years old.
I know. Yeah. Well, we're not quite that old.
I know, right?
Yeah. But you do have a ton of experience working with kids and teens.
Absolutely.
And families.
Kids of all ages. So
yeah.
Not just not just the littles, but also adolescents, and working with families that are struggling with things like communication and appropriate interactions together.
Right.
So that's kind of my specialty.
Yeah. So having been in this field for a while, are there changes that you've seen over time in parent struggle, or does it just kind of pivot a little bit? Or
do it's so funny. I was thinking about that on my way over. I think that we are overwhelmed with the amount of research that we see online about how dangerous screen time is for kids' brains, and that's real. There's a very real point to that.
Yeah.
But I remember being a child myself, and my mom saying the same thing about me watching TV.
Yeah, television.
So and my grandmother being concerned with my mom about me, watching so much cartoons on TV or whatever, and how they were worried about Looney Tunes causing violence in in kids, and so I think that there has been just a historic issue with kids engaging in something that is all encompassing, because I
Right.
think that that's how kids are.
Yeah.
Kids don't know how to moderate.
No.
It's one of the reasons why they need parents.
Right, right.
Right?
I just read an article, I'm going to interrupt you, but I just read an article that when books became readily available, there was a social outcry against children reading too many books, that this was going to be a problem. And yeah, so, you know, even now we're like, gosh, please read a book. Would you please read a book?
Absolutely. Anything. Just,
Yeah.
Even read a book on a screen, I'm okay with that. Just read.
Totally, yeah.
So I think the very real thing is that kids don't know how to moderate. And so
Right.
one of the things that we do as parents and caregivers is we moderate for them, and
Right.
then we are faced with the backlash of that, right? You're not being fair.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm crying and whining and I'm bored.
Yes,
You know, and
bored,
like the
yeah.
constant refrain of I'm bored can
Right.
feel really daunting for some
Yeah.
parents. What is the matter with my child? They are constantly bored.
Right.
I think that kids have always been bored.
Yeah.
I think that our kids today are just much more vocal about it.
Okay.
Partly because there is instant gratification in a kid saying, I'm bored, and a parent handing over a game
Okay.
or a phone or a tablet and saying,
Right.
here, watch a YouTube video.
Right.
Here, do something. Please stop screaming in my ear that you're bored, because I don't know what to do with you.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And two, we've lost some of the I think, some of the most fundamental tools in helping kids develop their own skills and successes with dealing with their boredom. We don't let our kids go outside anymore.
Right.
Because it's dangerous.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? We don't let them go out on their bikes and ride around, you know, with their neighborhood friends,
Right.
because, you know, we worry about whether or not they're going to come back.
Right.
You know, so kids don't have as much freedom as they used to.
Right.
Kids are also interesting. I read an interesting report about how much time we as humans are spending indoors.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, increasing depression because
Yeah.
of lack of, you know, melatonin, or
Right. Vitamin D.
vitamin D from the sun and all of that kind of stuff. So those are all things that we're juggling now in the 21st century that, you know, when I was a kid even.
Right.
My mom didn't have to worry about it. She literally locked the door,
Yeah.
sent me outside, locked the door, and said, don't come back until the car lights come on.
Right.
Ma, that's like 12 hours.
Right,
You
right,
know, okay,
yeah.
it's summer, go, I don't want to see you.
Yep.
So we can't do those things with our kids.
Right.
And so what those tools are being replaced with frequently is screen time.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yeah. And I know that I was surprised, because one of the questions that we asked as like a gateway question to get into the group was like, okay, you know, what's your biggest struggle? And a few of the people said that their kid is in sports and they are in other kind of activities, but sometimes finding another kid to connect with, because I think even in our neighborhoods, even if you're in a remote place, and it's somewhat safe to have your kids outside, that it doesn't mean there's somebody next door, right, for them to be able to connect with. And they're looking for communities, and you turn on the computer and there's automatic right there's a community for them to connect with and to socialize with. And another thing that we had talked about is that kind of unstructured play. You know, we just actually posted a video, I think it was this week, but by the time they see this it would have been last week, about you know, how animals need to play and how their brains develop, you know, with a lot of playtime, and how that is so necessary and good. And you see the rise of things like I forget what they call them, these like unstructured playgrounds where they give kids tools and they say, you know, like we're actually a sponsor of Mud Day, which is on Saturday, that kind of promotes that idea.
Absolutely.
So, you know, what can we as parents, you know, what are things that we should be looking for to try to create these opportunities for our kids? And again, it's different at different ages, right? You know, you've got little kids, you go to the beach, they automatically have a place to play, where if you've got a teenager, it's a whole other...
And I think that, you know, as we get older, one of the struggles is we have to look for more structured places, right? Because we can't just turn them out into the community and say, go play. You know, I'm done with you. Don't come back until you're dirty and it's nighttime.
Right.
So, you know, thinking about ways of reaching out into the community, like a Boys and Girls Club, is going to be so important for people during the summertime, especially. They have programs all the time, right? And they're fairly friendly to low income, you know, so it doesn't matter what your income level is. That's a resource that you should be able to have access to.
So the YMCA is the Boys and Girls Clubs. Yeah.
Absolutely. Scouts, Boys and Girl Scouts do camping over the summertime. I know that their season ends for the summer, but they tend to do like summer camping activities during the summer, things like that. You know, obviously communities like this, you're going to be looking for those places where kids can come and just be kids and shoot other kids with Nerf blasters and play games and engage in those different types of things.
Right. And you know, developmentally, I know there's, I think the article that I read most recently was about how babies, you know, pretty much don't even hand them a phone, like don't even hand them a tablet.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about what is happening in the mind of an infant, right? Their brain is developing so incredibly rapidly. They need what they need so many different types of engagement so that you are firing their brain synapses in as many regions of the brain as you can reach, right? So like sound, visual stimulation, tactile stimulation, lots of touch, you know, they're multi-sensory creatures, right? So, you know, reading to them, you know, taking them for walks outside where they can be, you know, have quiet, you know, hugging, playing, wrestling, touching them, you know, those are the kind of things that babies need. One of the people who does a lot of science around children and brain development is Dan Siegel. Right? He works with kids that are traumatized. He also writes some really incredible parenting books, No Drama Discipline and The Whole Brain Child, that talk about ways of interacting with kids so that you're correcting them in the most developmentally supportive way.
Okay.
Right?
Yep. Love that.
And he's great. And I forgot where I was going with that. He says the one thing that he says is circuits in the brain that fire together will wire together.
Okay.
Right? So, I mean, he says it much more eloquently than that, but what he's saying is when a kid gets angry and they hit something, that wires together so that a kid always associates anger with physical aggression, right? Or that the amount of stimulation that you get from screen time, so from playing a video game or from engaging in, you know, some other kind of screen stimulation, can essentially be like, and there's, like I said, a lot of research. You can find a lot of research about it. Some of it's very scary. Yeah. But it increases your serotonin levels. It increases your dopamine levels. It increases your adrenaline. Your sympathetic nervous system gets activated so that you are in kind of an accelerated place, like fight or flight, even though there's no danger, right? So that happens to your system. Right? Just because it's so exciting. What's happening, especially for a little kid who doesn't have any concept that this is something that isn't real. So that's the other thing, is the developmental piece for someone who is, you know, 3 and 4 years old or younger, they don't have any concept that what's happening on the screen isn't real. Right? Their sense of permanency isn't even fully established yet. You know, they still on some level think that when you play peekaboo, you go somewhere. You know, so for that kid, they're not differentiating between what's real and what's not real. So when they get that stimulated, right, their brain is wiring together that stimulation comes from screen time. So the absence of screen time is such a depressed mood, right? That they think that normal non-screen time is depressing. So their system is depressed. They get the idea that when they're not engaged in the screen time, that they are in fact depressed. So it's very, very hard for them to find joy in taking a walk, or joy in coloring a picture, or joy in doing some of the other things that just are normal. Right. Now this is true not just for little kids, but also, you know, I just read an article about how there's screen time addiction, that they are equating screen addiction to heroin addiction in teenagers.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Wow.
So it's not every kid that, I don't want everybody running out and pulling the screens out of their kids' hands and going, "You're an addict!" It's crazy. But they are identifying that there is such a thing as screen addiction, and when the interaction within the teen reaches that level, it looks in the brain scans the same as a heroin addiction. Right?
Yep.
So you know, that kind of takes us back to the importance of moderation, right? So decreasing, you know, making sure that kids are getting stimulation from other things that are not screens.
Right.
Reading.
Right.
Being outside, all of those things are really important, and allows them to develop those parts of the brain in an unstimulated way,
Right.
so that they're capable of finding joy in doing something as mundane as coloring a picture.
Right.
Now we say mundane because of the level of stimulation. Like, it doesn't stimulate a 9-year-old the same way that being on a screen does.
Yeah.
So we think of that as mundane, but we as adults know that there's beauty in art, that there's
Right.
beauty in nature, that there's beauty in those things. So
there's reward. It's rewarding. It has its own
Exactly.
set of rewards, right? So there must be guidelines of like how much screen time is too much screen time. Is there a good place to go for that, or is it so much a matter of opinion at this
it is
point?
so much a matter of opinion
really
at this point.
is?
It really
Wow.
still is. So, you know,
Fantastic.
you hear everything from 2 hours to 4 hours.
Okay.
Right? Depending on how much. And also, what I would say, some of my recommendations are between 2 and 4 hours, right? Over 4 hours, and that's almost four hours is half of a school day.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're going over that 4-hour chunk of time, they're spending their entire day
Yeah.
engaged in the screen.
Right,
Right?
right.
So I would say if you're going to start to limit it,
Yeah.
especially if you've got a kid who's going to be so resistant
Yeah.
to it, start slow.
Yeah.
Right?
And do you recommend that we start with like, you know, having a planned activity kind of a thing? Like, you know, there's something kind of to go to from this?
I think that, well, you know, again, we go back to the need to stimulate these kids in multiple ways. So
Right.
they really do need some reading time.
Yeah.
Right? They need some creative art time. Here, read, write, or draw is a lot of times what I'll say to my daughter when
Right.
it's her screen time is over for the day.
Yeah.
I'm bored. Hi,
Right.
bored. I'm down. She hates that. Oh my god.
I can just picture her rolling her little eyes at you.
She's like, I hate it when you say that. I'm like, I know. I hate it when you say I'm bored.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we're even at
Right,
that point,
exactly. Yeah.
But you know, so figuring out, you know, like read, write, or draw is oftentimes what I'll say to her.
Read, write, or draw.
Read, write, or draw.
Read, write, or draw. That's a good, yeah.
Go do something, and it kind of rhymes too. So it's
Yeah.
just it's easy to flick off.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
tongue.
yeah.
You know, having them, you know, if you've got kids that are really resistant, doing something with them is going to be really important.
Right.
This is actually a strategy we call hurdle help.
Hurdle help. Okay.
Hurdle help.
Yep.
Right? I am helping a kid over a hurdle.
Right.
Their hurdle is they don't know how to engage in the world without screens.
Right.
So I am going to do something with them.
Right.
I am going to drag them
Yes.
with my headphones on because I'm so tired of hearing them say
Right.
I'm bored.
Right.
On a walk. Or go
Right.
to the, you know, go walk down by the waterfront.
Yeah.
Or do, you know, with little kids, do a scavenger hunt.
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Do an adventure. Have
Yeah.
a story adventure about what you're doing on your walk. Like, engage them.
Right.
Kind of what you're thinking about are up energy activities
Yep.
that increase the stimulation to mirror what's happening when they get on the video games,
Okay.
right?
So you want something that's going to release some of the same chemicals.
Exactly.
You want them
Yes.
to get some vitamin D and some serotonin and
Absolutely.
some dopamine by doing something else.
Absolutely.
You know, when my kids were younger, and actually I think I set this up as a post coming up, but maybe I'll move it up in the line. But letterboxing was something which is, you know, because I know a lot of you have to be kind of like I am in that. I'm busy. You know, we've got a lot of
Seriously.
things to do. We're
Yeah.
trying to clean the house or cook or, you know, just get something done, and you don't have time to create a scavenger hunt, right? There's a downloadable one on the page right now.
There's a ton of downloadable stuff that you could just
Yeah.
Just listen. You know what, busy parents, Pinterest is your best friend.
Pinterest.
Pinterest.
There you go. You heard it.
Yep.
You heard it from the expert. But letterboxing is kind of like that. It's sort of like an offshoot of geocaching. Have you ever gone letterboxing?
I've gone geocaching.
Okay,
Which is awesome.
so which is awesome, but we found geocaching a little frustrating because I had kids on the spectrum, spectrum disorder, autism spectrum disorder, and if we couldn't if you didn't
Find
have a
it.
super accurate
Right.
whatever that thing is that tells you your
Or
latitude and
God
longitude.
forbid there wasn't anything there.
Oh, unless, yes. Oh, yeah. God forbid there's not something there. Oh my
Right.
gosh, it's like the worst in the world.
Yeah.
So, but letterboxing is kind of related to it, but it gives you landmarks. So you're looking for the rock that looks like a dinosaur, and you're looking for very specific visual things that my kids could understand in their young brains, instead of just a list of numbers that they were like, I don't understand this, where are we going, this doesn't make sense. And it was like, oh, we found this, and now we're going to look for the tree that's, we're looking for the birch tree with this on it.
So is that a thing, that there are things set
oh
up
yeah,
for? Is that
letterbox.
like you can just go on
You can
into
go
Letterbox
on.
and
Yeah,
That's
I think it's atlasquest.com, and I'll link it in the comments. But yeah, atlasquest.com, or LBNA, I think was the other one, Letterboxing North America. And they call it letterboxing because it originated in the UK, where a letterbox is a mailbox.
that makes sense.
But the premise of it is that you are kind of a scavenger hunt, and you're looking for different things. And then when you find it, what's in it is a pad of paper or a notebook, and a stamp. So you bring a stamp with you, and you leave your stamp. So we all had our own little stamp, and you can sign the book, and then you take a copy of the stamp that's there. And oftentimes they would theme it with like the type of a scavenger hunt that it was. So there was like one at a baseball field, and so it was like a little baseball stamp. So you can collect these over time, and then it's also, kids love to collect things. I know my kids did, and that was really fun. And there's other resources like that, but that's a quick one, and it's kind of neat because you're kind of like also kind of aware of like the world around you, and kind of that the world is bigger than our little circle of people, and pretty cool. And then there's a whole thing, like if you want an art activity and you get them into letterboxing, they can actually make their own stamps.
That's cool.
Which is really neat.
That is cool.
So there's all kinds of stuff attached to that. So I'm a huge letterboxing fan. But yeah, no, scavenger hunts are cool. So Pinterest has a lot of scavenger hunts?
Pinterest has lots of activities. So I like the scavenger hunts that they have for kids. They also have, because we're busy, right? And we don't have time necessarily to take a 2-hour scavenger hunt around the community because,
Right.
I don't know, I gotta work. I don't get home until 7 o'clock sometimes. And 7 o'clock ain't no time to be going out on a scavenger hunt.
Right,
Just saying.
right, yeah, no, it's true.
But they have, what I really like are the Lego challenge cards. So it'll be like you've got a box of Legos,
Yeah.
and it'll just say something on it, like build a robot, or build your name out of Legos, or build a tic-tac-toe board, and then play a game. And you can find those on Pinterest too. So
That's
Lego
really
challenge
neat.
cards.
Lego
It's-
challenge cards.
Yep.
All right, we'll link it in the
Absolutely.
comments too.
Kids are big fans, but little kids and middle schoolers big fans of bubbles and soap.
Yeah.
And sidewalk chalk. Like no kid is gonna say no to sidewalk chalk. And this
Right.
is actually, it's interesting. One of the things that I did to challenge myself as a parent, when Neve would say I'm bored, she's my daughter. She would say it so frequently, and my wife and I would get so frustrated, like trying to entertain her.
Right.
Before we realized that it's not my job.
Right,
It
right.
is not my job
Right.
to entertain
Especially an
my
only child, because she's she
Seriously.
doesn't have a sibling. So
Right.
yeah, you're the
So
playmate.
it's not my job to entertain her
Right.
when she's not plugged into the television,
Right.
And
Yep.
so I started telling her, like, listen, being bored is actually okay.
Yeah.
Right? So there is science behind this.
Yep.
Kids, when they're bored, they're quiet or they're active in their brains. So they reprocess the events that happen during the day.
Right.
They think creatively about problems in the world that they interact with.
Right.
And they the time that they spend being bored is both developmentally appropriate and necessary in order for them to become flexible thinkers and abstract thinkers and creative thinkers. And so I tell her all the time now, you know what, you're bored? Okay, good.
That's good.
You go with that.
Yeah.
We're gonna go with that. Be bored.
Yeah. That is so interesting.
So I could put one downstairs, so I don't have to.
I was actually one of the things on one of the suggestions for like things that you're trying, because there's a lot of these 50 lists, 50 things or 100 things your kid can do, and one of them that I thought was really interesting was like get a blanket and go lay in the grass and look at the clouds. And that kind of goes to that, right? It's kind of just that time to kind of think and just, because what is it that boredom is the mother invention or necessity?
Necessity is the mother of invention.
The mother invention. So
well, and boredom for kids is, like I said, boredom is so important. And we, I was actually just thinking about this. We used to build sensory boxes for kids that I worked with,
Right.
which provided lots of sensory stimulation for them when they were feeling dysregulated.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I think that you could really do something like that for a kid, especially if you're a busy parent,
Right.
building a board box.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
call
yeah.
it the board box.
Right,
You know?
right.
And put in a drawing pad, some colored pencils,
Yeah.
some crayons.
Yeah, I was thinking like an art station, if you had a section where they could just go and get those
You could
things
put,
for
you know, a little
themselves.
pouch
Yeah.
of Legos in there.
Right.
You could put some Lego challenge cards in there. You could
Right.
put something, and then you can say, when they say I'm bored, you could say, you don't have to like think of something really clever on the spot. Go to
Right.
your board box.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
get something out of there, or sit on the couch and whine about being bored.
Right.
But silently, because I'm done hearing it.
So I got things to do.
Right?
And on my list is not listen to
Yeah.
you complain.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to let your kids sit in silence.
Yeah.
Right? Like even stewing on the couch, because that's where they're doing that creative processing. That's
Right.
where they're doing that abstract thinking.
Yeah.
You know, they're reprocessing their day, which is so important.
Yeah.
You know, because they think about things when they're doing that, about how situations could have gone differently, or what who said about who, and
Right.
how that might have changed if they had done this thing wrong,
Yeah.
or this thing differently, or this, you know, whatever.
And how do we scale that for older kids?
So I think
Because it's easy to have like a
Yeah.
you know a board box for little ones or up through even early middle school age. But then once they start getting into later middle school and high school, you know, I think finding something for them that's compelling enough to get off the screen is a little more challenging. And we also want to give them more choice, right?
So I think that actually you kind of flip it when they're teenagers. So when they're younger, you're limiting their screen time and giving them all of these other things to do. When they're teenagers, they're earning their screen time.
Oh, they're earning it.
Yes,
Oh,
because
okay.
they,
I
you
like
know,
this.
yeah. So they're earning it. They are getting chores done. They are doing their homework. They are making sure that their bedroom is clean. They are making sure that they have done, you know, maybe even working into that some exercise. So you have taken. So in the summer,
Yeah.
I've got my teenager, and they want screen time. So I have control over screen time because I've got control over the internet.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you know, if they shouldn't have a phone. I mean, they shouldn't have a phone that doesn't have parental controls on it.
Right. Right.
Right? So finding those resources and using them.
Yeah.
Microsoft has parental controls. Kindle has parental controls. Everything has parental controls. So engaging those parental controls.
Right.
So I will lift those parental controls when you have woken up,
Yep.
gotten a shower, fed yourself breakfast, gone outside for an hour and a half, done something, take a walk, do, you know, something.
Yard work, do something.
Right? Read a book. You know,
Right.
you've spent some time reading. You know, do your chores. So you need to gather up your laundry, take out the trash. You know, mow the yard, whatever. And then when you've done that, and it is, you know, after lunch or you know, right before dinner or whatever time, I will lift the parental controls and you can have access to the internet.
So we're still the gatekeeper.
We're still the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
You know what? You know me. I'm famous for saying this. Kids don't have a fully developed brain until they're 26 years old. 26.
It is his favorite thing to say. Especially
It is.
because I have teenagers.
Your child's brain is not fully developed. So, and the place that it is not fully developed is in the frontal lobe. That frontal lobe is where we make all of our rational decision making. That's where we do all of our rational decision making, all of our like future orientation planning,
Yeah.
all of our like cause and effect thinking. If I do this, then this will happen, and that's bad.
Right.
Or that's what I want. Right?
Right.
So that isn't. They're not there. They're
Right.
actually in a place called the limbic brain.
Yeah.
The limbic system,
Right.
the limbic part of their brain, where it's all about, it literally is the drama center of the brain. It's all about relationships. It's all about, you know, how you are looking at me and
Right.
what that means about me,
Right.
and how you are
Right.
talking to me and what that means about me.
Yeah.
And they don't have the ability to gauge the consequences of their actions
Yeah.
and the results that are going to happen because of them.
Right, right.
So we have to be that gatekeeper for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, as you're saying that, if that's why, because of course there's so many articles about young people who are depressed,
Yes.
and comparing themselves to not Pinterest, Instagram, and you know
Yeah.
all these brand things that make them feel less than or
Yes,
inferior in
absolutely.
some way. That's
And that's exactly
really
why.
bad for their brain.
Well, it's really bad for their character,
Yeah.
right? But it's where their brain is. You know, it's like that is the truck that they're driving. You know, like
Yeah.
you know, you may
Yeah.
want them in, you know, some, you know, minivan and they are driving a fast car.
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they can't. That's because that's where their brain is.
Yeah.
So allowing them to have access to all of those things without any parental controls can be so damaging to their character.
Right.
Because they're trying to individuate.
Right.
So they're trying to define who they are apart from you now,
Yep.
right? Because before they were defined through you and by you, and
Right.
now they're trying to individuate.
Right.
They are trying to group themselves with their friends, and
Yeah.
so they're trying to establish themselves in the community at large,
Right.
both, and in their small friend groups,
Yeah.
right? And those are all things that are there's an incredible amount of social pressure to engage in, drug
Drama,
use
right.
and drama, and maybe some inappropriate
Risky activity.
yeah,
Right.
some risky stuff. There is also a drive, interestingly enough, there's also a drive for teenagers to take risks, right? So what's happening also in the brain is that we are experiential learners, and so we are, okay, I feel like either I'm not confident enough to do this and I have to prove it to myself and all my friends.
Okay.
So I'm going to do something that's incredibly risky, or I feel confident, so I feel overconfident in my skills, so I am going to do this incredibly risky thing because watch how well I succeed.
Yeah,
I am going to impress you all with my magical
With
ability
my-
to
with
jump
my
over
coolness.
this wall and do a backflip and not land on my neck and kill myself.
Right, right.
So there's a drive for teenagers.
That
to
explains
engage in.
Dude Perfect. Wow.
I'm just saying.
No wonder that's so popular with the kids.
Right.
No, so sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's truth though. But another thing that you can do is find ways that are monitored or that are kind of controlled chaos for your kids to take risks.
Okay.
And one of the things that I actually really like about the LARPing program that we
Yeah.
do is it allows for natural, safe ways for kids to be risky.
Right.
To like jump out of the woods and go
Right.
like a skeleton warrior at
Yeah.
and chase some kids around with a
Right.
foam sword can feel incredibly challenging
Yeah,
and
yeah.
incredibly risky.
Right.
but it's completely safe. They're chasing them around with
Right. He's talking about our live action adventure program, live action role playing program. We talked a little bit about that in the last video. But live action role play is role play, but it's in real life, and people often have foam swords. Our program for very small children does not have any combat at all, and it's equally as awesome. But a lot of the boys really like having that foam sword in their hand and being able to chase each other around with it. It's a thing. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
There's also, Boy Scouts provides going and out into the woods and camping.
Right.
There's a risk,
Right.
starting a fire, learning how to
Right.
control a fire is risky.
Right.
Right, and it's got that same payoff.
Yeah.
So engaging in those things for teenagers is going to be really important.
Right. So, so looking for opportunities for them to find their way to take risks within the safety and the community
Exactly.
things.
Yeah.
I'm wondering also about like volunteering opportunities and things
Oh,
like that
absolutely.
might also provide some of that, where they feel like they've got some distance from mom and dad,
Absolutely.
and they're kind of on their own two
Yep.
feet, and they can have something to be, kind of proud of.
I really did a lot of work with kids when I was working in Vermont with the local animal shelter. It was really great. So as a therapist, I would take the kids to the local animal shelter, and they would do a lot of volunteering there with the cats and the
wow.
dogs, like walking dogs and patting cats and socializing animals. It was great. You cannot get a lot. The amount that you get out of petting a small furry animal is activating as a video game. Right?
Oh,
So you're
yeah.
getting it's a multi-sensory experience.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right?
Yeah, that
So,
makes sense. Yeah.
if you have the time and the energy and the
Yeah.
effort, take your kids to the local animal shelter and volunteer with them.
Oh yeah.
Just
That's a great suggestion.
Have a
yeah.
safety plan for yourself in case you're an adopter.
That would be my sister.
Don't foster if you're an adopter, or you'll
Yeah.
have 27 cats, and
Right.
then you'll be that person.
Right, and then you're the cat person.
Right.
Yeah, who knew? That's how it starts. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Great. Well, do you have any suggestions about if there's a mom out, because the other thing that as you were talking I was thinking about is my kids were homeschooled and some of their school is online, so they're getting screen time because they have to get the screen time to get their work done, right? And then we weren't geographically close to others, and so for them to connect they used screen time to connect with others, you know, and they did other things. But do you have suggestions for what we can do for that?
I would say that one of the things to consider, again, like I said, we've been having this struggle since the like dawn of time.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was TV, it was books, it was now it's screens, right? Is to think about how your child is engaging in screens.
Yeah.
Right? Reading a book online is still reading.
Yeah.
It's activating that part of the brain that requires the production of imagination.
So don't worry about the Kindle.
So don't
like,
worry
for
about
that.
the Kindle. Don't worry about the Kindle for that, right? Also, make sure that and then, you know, watching television is kind of the same way. It's not as it doesn't have to be as escalating, as stimulating
Right.
as playing a, you know, video game,
Yeah.
right? Or engaging in some kind of gameplay,
Right.
right? So, you know, make sure that your kids aren't also watching stupid stuff online. Like you have-
I'm sorry, I'm laughing
no, it's
because
okay.
of like I was you know, my niece and nephew are a lot younger than my kids, and they're little, and their favorite thing to do is watch unboxing videos of toys. And yes, and I'm sorry, when you said like watching stupid stuff, I'm like, well, there's nothing stupider than that. I can't think of anything
That is
stupider than
hilarious.
watching someone open a toy and then tell you what it feels like. I was like, are you kidding me right now?
Wow.
Seriously.
No,
But they
yeah.
have unboxing for all different ages. And like, you know, this one woman, I'm sorry, I'm going off, I know. But this one woman was like taking out different toys and talking about them, and then she would play with them and do different things with them. And I'm like, hey, you know what you all have? Toys. You know what we can do right now? Right here in your room? Is take out the toys and play with them, you know. But
Yeah.
they were interested. They were so wrapped by this, and I just thought that's a new development since I was a young parent. So I'm sorry. I just
It
have
is
to-
too, and you know what? You think about the way that YouTube
Right.
is different than
Yeah.
television.
Yep.
Right. So you can. My daughter was watching a YouTube video. She watches other people play video games.
Yes, that's the, my kids did that too.
I don't even know what.
And you
to
know what they
do
call it?
with
I think
that.
they call it a Let's Play.
I don't
Isn't
know
that
what they
ironic?
call it.
That's what this
So
group is
weird.
called. Yeah, I think that's called a Let's Play.
I know. It just boggles my mind.
It's yeah.
But there are YouTube videos out there that are kid friendly
Yep.
and that they're decent to watch. I've
Right.
watched more than any amount that I ever thought that I would ever want to watch. But I was listening to one of them the other day, and it was totally. I had it was. He's like, oh well, I'm not neighbors with ugly people, and I was like, let's talk about what you're getting exposed to. So we had a
Yeah.
conversation at dinner about it.
Yeah.
Right, and I was really surprised that she was able to say, you know what, I understand why that's wrong.
Right.
After a lot of back and forth about like why that's not okay.
Right.
And she said, you know what, I know the ones that are for kids, I'm gonna not watch this guy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch them. Is that okay? Can I
Yeah.
still watch it? And I was like, as long as we can agree that
Yeah.
you're not gonna watch
This particular.
these other people,
Right.
then, you know, I'm okay with that as long as you acknowledge that if I hear something that I don't like,
Right.
I'm probably going to ask you to do something else.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So, you know, so making sure that you're paying attention to what your kids watch, because it's not all safe stuff on
Right.
YouTube is a dangerous place.
Right. Yeah.
You know, but Netflix has these educational shows,
Yep.
right? They are going to stimulate a brain less in that fight or flight mode,
Yeah.
less,
Right.
than something that is like watching, I don't know,
Participating in a shoot 'em up.
like Die Hard,
Yeah,
or,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Oh, yeah.
or
Right.
you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
A video game that is a shoot 'em up game.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
problem solving video. I mean, if you have to gauge what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Know about what's happening. Gauge what's going on. Shoot 'em up video games are more stimulating because they strike a fear response than puzzle solving video games.
Right.
So if you have to make a choice,
Right.
choose puzzle solving video games
Right.
more
Right.
frequently than the shoot 'em up video games. Right.
Right.
I mean, you're not going to get rid of shoot 'em up video games entirely.
No.
But you can limit the amount of access.
Right. Yeah. And my husband wants to do a whole thing because he's like the anti, like not anti, I shouldn't say that, but he's very much like an advocate about, you know, about appropriate media. You know, I mean, he feels like we shouldn't take this stuff away completely from our kids because there are benefits, you know, to the puzzle solving games and to the problem solving games and other. I mean, honestly, I'm trying to remember. Scribblenauts taught my son to spell. and read. And he struggled with it until he played Scribblenauts. He got obsessed with this game for a while. And it really, really helped him. And I remember sharing it with a friend whose son was dyslexic and having trouble learning to spell. And she was like, Scribblenauts is like the best thing, right? So, I mean, there are games that are helpful and good for our kids. It's really just about those limits. And I think you're right in that it's hard sometimes as the parent when we're trying to get stuff done, when we don't have time to sit down and play a tabletop game with them, or we don't have time to sit down and color, or if they're an only child or the youngest child, and there's not a playmate for them to occupy them, we don't always have time. So having some go-to things, and I think that's true about a lot of things, is just kind of having a plan. Right.
Absolutely.
Having a plan that works for your family, because every family is a little different, and just being aware of the dangers of too much of anything. Right.
And that's just it. It's about moderation.
Right.
Kids can't. That's what we need to do, is we need to help them moderate. It's not inherently bad.
Right.
Right? But it is, just like anything. You eat too much candy, you drink too much, you do brush your teeth too much, even can
Right.
be bad.
Right.
So it's just figuring out and setting those limits for our kids.
Right. All right. Well, thanks so much. Do you have any other last minute advice for our families out there?
It's okay. Say, you know what?
It's okay.
For kids to be bored. That is
Yeah.
my biggest, take-home messages.
Yeah.
It's okay for them to be bored.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
So I will link all of these things in the follow-up. I usually do a little blog post so that you guys can have all of the resources that we talked about. Evan can be found. We'll link to because he has a private
I do.
practice. And he specializes in kids and families.
Absolutely. And if you email me at my private practice, which is on my website, I'm more than happy to answer your questions.
Right. And Evan has worked with kids who have complex traumas using narrative therapy. That was something I kind of wanted you to talk about. Maybe we'll do another video
That's
talking
a whole
about
nother
that.
video.
That's a whole nother video.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that another time. And Evan will also be running Quest with us next month. And
Absolutely.
so if you have a child who needs to practice their social skills, you might get to have him in him or her in a program with us that helps them practice their social skills.
Absolutely.
And we're here for you. So let us know if you guys have any questions, if there's a certain kind of video or somebody that you want me to seek out to talk to. I am happy to do that. And thanks so much for watching, and bye.
All right.